I got pregnant when I was 22, and I thought, this is the mindset I was in, I thought I was going to have the baby, put her into daycare as 3 months, as soon as she could, and carry on with my life. But the day I had my daughter, I just looked at her, and most people would be like, that's the most amazing day, and for me it wasn't. I just looked at her and I just burst into tears, like, I'm so sorry. I felt this guilt, like, you've got an awful mum.
Hi, it's Calvin Niles, the mindful storyteller, and I am delighted to share with you stories of awakening. Each week, I'm going to be talking to people from around the world of various backgrounds and experiences. People I love, I know, and people I admire, but also those who are completely new to me. One thing all my guests will have in common is that they have been through a journey of awakening. By awakening, I mean a call to higher consciousness and deeper self-awareness beyond material reality. These stories will be real, challenging, funny, stimulating, and insightful. We're going to take our good time with these conversations. So listen from your comfy chair with your favorite drink, or on your weekend stroll, your morning routine, or whatever makes you happy. Stories of awakening with me, Calvin Niles, and I look forward to you tuning in. Welcome, Victoria Moore, and thank you for joining me for this conversation in what we're going to be talking about, your awakening. And this series is all about people who've been through an awakening, what that might have been like for them, what life was like beforehand, and what was that trigger for you. So thank you for joining. Maybe you could start by sharing a little bit more about you and your life and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. It's so good to be here. And my favourite subject as well. So it's all good. So maybe I'll tell you a bit about who I am right now before we go back. My name's Victoria. I'm a mother. I've got a 14-year-old daughter, and I teach Kundalini yoga, meditation, sound healing. Just started mentoring as well some other teachers into their journey. So I'm essentially a space holder, and whether that be the role of the mother or the yoga teacher, I'm essentially doing that same thing, like holding that space for the people to grow, whether that be spiritually, physically, in the case of my daughter, mentally, emotionally. And I feel like I'm really aligned with my purpose in that, and I find that very effortless. So this is what I enjoy doing, and I just do it all the time for fun. It's just who I am. So I would say I'm in a very joyful place. And what else do I do? Nature. I go to Glastonbury a lot. I run some retreats in Glastonbury, so I love just to be out. I'm living in London, so get out of London into nature. And sounding quite simple life, maybe I live more of a balanced life now. Yeah.
And it's really interesting because we don't always arrive at this balanced life just automatically, do we? Some of us end up having to sort of go out of balance over and over and over again before we finally realize, okay, something really needs to fundamentally change here. Is that what happened for you?
Yeah, and I feel like I've got to sort of correct myself a little bit, because I do believe that there's always something a little bit out of balance. Like, I always joke, like, if my daughter's well cared for, work and emails are up to date, the house is a mess. If the house is a mess, work's great, my daughter's needy. So there's always like this juggling that I experience, but taking a step back, the bigger picture of my life, it's very balanced. I'm not causing or creating dramas. I'm not bouncing between polarities. So in that sense, the bigger picture, there's a lot more balance. The human in me is still way too messy and things like that.
Hi, if you're enjoying this conversation, you might like SOAR Book Club. Many similar conversations are happening in SOAR Book Club, a book club for the spiritually curious. If you like spiritual books and community, then why not join SOAR, where we can grow together, learn together in a fun and nurturing environment. Click the link below in the description to find out more about SOAR Book Club, or to find out how you can join. It'd be nice to see you there.
But yeah, okay, so let's go way back. And I would say my awakening has happened in waves as opposed to a one big catalyst. And I know a lot of people literally, they say they wake up, but I feel like I had this really deep sense of curiosity and intrigue from so young, and I was a seeker from like 9 years old. So
wow.
I was always like I used to just look at my family and be like, I'm out of here. As soon as I can get out of here, like there's more. And so it sort of, I felt like it was the household, the family, but I still have that in me now. It's just that curiosity. Like when I speak to people, I want to go deep and have a deep conversation. When I go somewhere, I don't want to go to the same restaurant. I want to go somewhere new. There's always that kind of, I find life amazing and magical. So that sense has always been there with me. And I would say through my teen years, that's when part of that shut down, and I done the classic drink, drugs. I had a really toxic relationship, and what happened was I got really bad anxiety, and I developed what I now would call an addictive pattern, but I'm sure a lot of people would just say that's just being a teenager. But if being a teenager is being addictive to drama, then that's what I was doing. So there was always a bigger party or another argument with the boyfriend, or there was always this sort of thing going on. And so I never had that stillness and that reflection. And like I said, I had really bad anxiety and sort of a sense of stress. And now I recognize that blocks the third eye. So that blocks you from really living intuitively and also from leading with your heart, because you're almost in a competition. You don't even know who the competition's with. So that was quite a challenging time, I would say. And all of my curiosity and that sense of spirituality was numbed out throughout all those years. And then I got pregnant when I was 22. And I thought, this is the mindset I was in, I thought I was going to have the baby, put her into daycare as 3 months, as soon as she could, and carry on with my life. But the day I had my daughter, I just looked at her, and most people would be like, that's the most amazing day, and for me it wasn't. I just looked at her and I just burst into tears, like, I'm so sorry. I felt this guilt, like, you've got an awful mum, like you haven't made a good choice, like that. I've been crying out. I just felt awful, like this poor innocent child, she's got me. And that was the real truth of how I felt about myself. I felt like I was not a good person, and that was because of all of that time of how I was leading my life. And then I just had this something, don't know what it was, like come through me and like fill me with this love that I've been missing for so long. And it was just like, oh, okay, yeah, you're being held, like you can do this. It was not even anything that I can say rationally. It was literally just a wake up of my truth, of my heart, and this sort of almost like the dimensions had aligned just for that moment. And it seemed like the path was really clear. And then I was just like, okay, I'm going to do the best that I can do for you. And that was, I feel like, the biggest like conscious catalyst for some sort of opening, awakening, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Wow. So this happened when your daughter, was this your daughter who was born when you were 22? Did this happen when she was still very small, like a baby, or did this happen maybe later on, a few months in, or a year in?
No, as in like an hour after I'd had her. So I was in the hospital, and her dad left. I had her at 13 minutes past 10, and by 10:30, I was in the ward by myself with her. I was just sat there, and my phone had died. I had no charger, and I feel like I just was still enough for probably the longest I'd been for however long, and it literally came through. So I'm like maybe like 2 hours after I'd had her. Yeah,
that's incredible. Something opened for you right after basically childbirth.
yeah.
Wow. Would you say that, you mentioned, when you were young, you were 9, you were already curious, asking all these questions. Where did that seed of curiosity come from for you? Is it something that you felt was from your environment, or was it something that was you just felt like it was always there inside of you? And what would you say made that switch off, that kind of, you had this fire burning, didn't you? It says, right, okay, once I'm old enough, I need to go and live my life and complete my mission, kind of. You hinted towards some kind of calling, but then that was suppressed. Why do you think that happened?
I'm trying to think back, because I remember I used to have a lot of premonitions in my dreams, and I got a dream book, and so I could interpret what my dreams meant. And I would just ask my parents questions, and I know they just didn't know the answers to what I was asking to. So I feel like we all have that as children. If you just watch a child and let them play, like in a forest, in a sort of nature area, you'll see they talk to things, they see things that we're not seeing, because they're not conditioned the same way we are. And I don't think that left me. And I still feel like that now, like that child part of me is very much alive and awake. And I would say it was something started making me shut down. And I started to feel like a sense of longing. But rather than that exciting curiosity, it was like a longing of like separation and like almost missing something that I didn't know what I had. I actually developed quite bad insomnia. I was about 12. I had really bad insomnia, and I just used to shut myself off in my bedroom. And I don't know what the catalyst was still today, but I just shut down more and more and more. And then the next time I came out, it was coming out in a superficial way. It was more of a superficial, get dressed up. I sort of went through puberty and then re-emerged as a different, because at 12 I was like super skinny, withdrawn in every way. Then about 16 I kind of emerged, but I used to work in the hairdressers, so it was like get dressed up. I stopped being so shy and became more sort of able to communicate, but none of it was from that deep sense that I do things from now. I wasn't leading from the heart. So it's so strange even for me to look back, because it's almost like trying to remember a film or something that you watched as a kid, because I can't really identify of the character that I was playing at that time. So many parts of it are missing. I can just say sort of things, and sometimes I feel like, was that completely true? There was bursts of happiness in that time. I can't say, I had amazing nights out with my friends, but is it the joy that I feel now? No, it's not. So it's so multi-layered. We're multi-dimensional beings, it's so multi-dimensional. So that's why I say like my awakenings definitely came in waves. And was it always there? Yeah, it was. It was just numbed and it was silenced. It was put to the side. Whereas now it's like leading the show. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the wave that you had, maybe starting from a very young age, of probing and questioning and seeking, even though you were a child and you didn't quite know how to interpret that or ascribe the right language to it.
Yeah.
Then you went through puberty and you kind of felt there was a switching off during your teenage years, but then your daughter was conceived, and once you gave birth to her, and just as a side note, some years ago I was doing some confidence building work in a woman's prison, and helping them to express themselves and tell their story and so on. And there was a woman in there who, wow, one of the roughest lives that she had. And I mean, she had a slash across her face. She went through the wars, and you could look at her and see. And she told a story about giving birth after having been raped. And she rejected this child for the entire pregnancy, to the point where she couldn't feel the baby inside of her, the baby kicking, moving around, all the things that a normal healthy pregnancy will have. She kind of put that in a box in her mind because of the trauma. And she said, when this child was born, and she said, I thought that, childbirth was going to be absolutely dreadful, painful. All the women were telling me it's the worst thing you're ever going to have. She said, for me, it was a walk in the park. I to be honest with you, I barely felt the baby kick till it was 8 or 9 months in. And when this little thing came in my hands after birth, because she was very small, the love that I felt overwhelmed me and opened something in me that I have never experienced this love before. And she started to cry. This is in the prison that she's telling this story, amongst me and other prisoners. And she started to cry. And I remember getting these goosebumps all over my skin, thinking,
Yeah, I have now.
whoa. I wrote about this because it was so powerful. I had to write about it that same day. And I'm just wondering if there is something about giving birth that opens this channel of love,
Yeah,
that completely unlocks, or has a transformational element there for people, even if they're not expecting it. I mean, it's one thing, if you kind of are already, if you already had your awakening experience, so then you can name it and go, okay, yeah, I recognize my heart's opening, or what have you. But somebody who's so hard and so closed, as this woman was, to have that experience. So is there a commonality in terms of the childbirth experience and just the love that you have for this being that you have essentially just given birth to, been so transformational? Would that be the major pivotal moment for you?
I think so, because it also then affected all the choices that I made. But if we think about it, it's such a miracle that we take lightly. And from the soul that chose you, and I believe the children choose their parents. So from her perspective, she chose me, and for me to nurture her and my baby, when she comes out, she's entering another dimension. You become a portal for a being to enter a whole nother dimension, this planet Earth. And for me, or for any woman, it is a rebirthing, because you don't just give birth to a child, you give birth to a mother. All of a sudden, you are somebody else, a new identity.
You're giving me goosebumps here. Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? You're giving to yourself a new version of yourself.
Yeah. And so, so I feel like there's so much to be honored around that process, and that that life, it's life. And something I find really interesting, and that's kind of side note, is I was reading so much about pregnancy and everything, and so the point that makes that child decide it's ready to come. So we know it's like the gestation process is 9 months, and we know scientifically the process that the body goes through to create that opening and the child to be received. But it's that magical, what is that turns the light on to say this is the time? And the scientists still don't know that, so it's like that's.
Do you mean the time to trigger the childbirth procedure? To trigger labor, basically.
Yeah, to say I'm ready. So we can mimic it, but we've not found that moment. And I see that when we see the flowers closed, and if you watch them maybe on a time lapse, and there's that moment, and then all of a sudden they're out, it's that same thing, like that's that magic something that is beyond our comprehension as a human. And I feel like that's what happens with the awakening. It's that moment. We can't force that moment in our consciousness to awaken. We can set ourselves up for it. We can do all the work, but when that happens is not up to us. That it just happens when it happens. That's why some people get it spontaneously. They're just, I don't know where they are, random. But
just walking,
yes.
going to the shops, and then a sudden stroke of insight hits them. Hold on a minute. This is not what life is meant to be.
yeah, definitely. Why not? I'm sure it's happened,
Yeah.
So then afterwards, I feel like what she also done for me, I called her my earth angel for many years, and now she would not like to be called that because she's 40. Just on a different path. But she was so angelic, but she gave me permission to make a lot of changes. And at first I actually didn't. I was sort of thinking, I need to get back to me. And you hear a lot of mums say that, I need to get back to me. But that me doesn't exist anymore. You need to find out who you are now and look forward in those steps. So I would say that took me about 18 months to really process what that meant to be this version of me. And then after that, I could make so many different changes that shocked everyone around me. Everyone thought I was going crazy. Like, why are you doing this? I remember I had all of this. I'd been to the farmer's market. I had loads of kale and things like this because I started juicing, because it affects you in one area, then it affects you in everything, because you start thinking like, this food is really low vibrational. If I want to increase my vibration even more, I need to eat high vibrational foods. So I'd get loads of green foods because green represents the heart chakra. And I wanted my child.
Can I just ask you about that more? So, you mentioned this juicing and the foods that you were eating were, high vibrational. Were you already using that kind of language then while you were in the process? Were you already saying, consciously saying things like, I need to change my vibrational level. I need to, I know these are higher vibration foods and these are low, or, the whole stuff with the chakra system. Were you already using that language then, or did you start learning that in that process?
Yeah, I started learning. Yeah, so that spark of curiosity was back, and the internet arrived. And also what happened is when I first had her, I was breastfeeding, and sometimes it would be like literally 20 hours a day breastfeeding in the first few weeks. So I always used to walk to the bookshop, which had a cafe in it, and I used to get a self-help book, and I would sit with her with a muslin over her, and read these books for hours and hours. For weeks and weeks I'd done that, till the point where I'd read every single book on the self-help section in Borders bookshop. The best place ever. So I was reading, the curiosity was back, and the space was there. I was literally sat there with a child on me, and I couldn't move. She was feeding. So the space was created, the curiosity was back, and there was all the information that I needed, which I couldn't find when I was younger. It wasn't available to me. Like I said, my parents didn't know the answers. I got, one or two books. They didn't even know what books to buy me. And now it was just like a whole new world open. So I started off more with personal development stuff, figuring out, why don't I feel the same? Because it felt like depression. Why don't I feel the same anymore? Why does this not excite me? Why does this night out not excite me? What does excite me? Why? Who am I? It was all of this.
And you said it felt like depression because, I guess, is it because your whole reality, everything you thought about who you were and were meant to be, and all the hallmarks of your life suddenly just didn't connect with you anymore, didn't resonate with you anymore?
And so did you actually think you were depressed?
Yeah, it's an ego death, and it's not easy. It's a grieving, and it was painful because my daughter's dad did not resonate with the new version of me, and I was living with his mom, and I was away from my family, and so I was also lonely. So it was, and I didn't have anyone to talk to. There were not Facebook groups at that time. I went to one spiritualist church, but that was a lot of older people trying to contact spirits. It wasn't people who were awakened and trying to change their life. So yeah, I felt disconnected from a lot of people, and it was really challenging for a long time. And that's when I went into personal development, so trying to understand who I was, and how to be positive, actually, just to be positive. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to be positive about the current situation, not feel like I don't fit in, this doesn't resonate, I feel disconnected, because that was the response I was getting to the old life that I was still surrounded by, because that happened overnight, but everything else stayed the same. So it can feel really lonely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine that being quite a challenging, depressing place to be, actually. And feeling like nobody gets you, no one understands your challenge, and you can't articulate that properly because you don't know what's going on yourself.
Yeah.
So that pain and loneliness and questioning of like, what the hell is going on? What's happening to me? That got you gravitating towards trying to find solutions, which took you to this self-help section of the bookstore.
Yeah.
And then you started to open up to new ways of understanding your experience. Is that what happened next, or did you have another kind of wave after that as well?
It was definitely that sort of 18 months was a long process of me trying to figure it out. And then I went to Tony Robbins' event. Do you know Tony Robbins? He's a big American motivational speaker. I went to his event, which just blew my mind, because all of a sudden there was a whole room. I went to Rome to do it as well, because it wasn't in the UK at that time. There was a whole room of people who were either on this path or wanted to be. So I went from the crowd of people going, you're weird, you've gone weird, you're crazy, what's wrong with you, to you're amazing, you can do anything you put your mind to, you're inspiring. I was like, how am I inspiring? I didn't know that I was inspiring, but it was inspiring, the fact that I didn't just shut off and I didn't go back. I continued with that curiosity and that something, that core that I knew was there. So that was incredible. I met a whole new group of friends there. And also on the fourth day, it was 4 day or 3 or 4 day, on the last day, they done a huge thing on diet and lifestyle. So you can't just work with the mind, you have to work on every single level to have this true open channel of energy. I work a lot of energy now, but the first thing I tackled was the mind, and then I went to the diet. And that's where I learned about this, eating more alkaline foods, lots of green foods. I was already vegetarian, but I went vegan, and all of this kind of thing. And that then gives you also another focus. Yeah, because you can't just think about spirituality. We're human and we're here on earth. And so you have to give yourself a focus and a purpose, as well as a spiritual practice and experience. So that really helped for me. But yeah, I was saying before, so my friend came over and saw that I had all this kale and stuff in the house. And she had 2 little boys, and when she had sweets, and I was like, oh, sorry, my daughter can't have those. And they gave them all blueberries and strawberries. Anyway, I thought we had a great time. She left and went straight to my daughter's dad saying, Victoria's lost the plot. There's something really wrong with her. There's all this kale in the kitchen, and she's given the kids strawberries and blueberries. I mean, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
this Victoria Moore lady, what are you doing? She's nuts.
I know. But
She's not. She's eating fruits.
I know. And how ridiculous does that sound? But for some reason at that time, and who I was and who I hung around with, they thought I'd literally lost the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so you've went through this leveling up, shall we say,
Yeah.
to use a very popular term at the moment in the
Yeah.
Brexit landscape, and so you had this kind of, wow, there's a new way to be, and you found this supportive environment to cultivate this new way to be for you. Did you continue? Was it happily ever after that, or did you fall off the wagon? And then, because sometimes people they get this awakening experience, and then it's like, wow, that was big, life's changed, and then they fall back into old habits, or maybe not quite stay, or maybe even become like depressed because they maybe have gone so far out of what was their support network beforehand. They just were, the loneliness, for example, could have hit them really hard. Like in your example, you were lonely, you found a way out. Did you have a wave of, because you mentioned this happened in waves, this awakening, so how did things progress after you found a supportive tribe? You changed your diet, you started to become aware of terminology in your energy system in the body and all kinds of other things. What happened after that?
I feel like there was, rather than I went back, there was a bit of weaving. So I'd be eating super healthy, but then I'd still go and have a night out and get drunk. So I used to do that. And then I remember I met a guy who ended up being my partner, and he said to me something about me drinking. It was just like a really small comment, like do you have to have a drink? Do you have to have a drink when you do that, or something? Anyway, I was just all of a sudden thought, why am I even drinking? Why am I still doing that? So there's part of me that was still maybe taking the things that I thought were the best bits from that previous time into this new way and trying to weave them through. And anyway, then I was going to India for a month in the January, and I just thought, that's it, I'm not going to drink again. So
Yeah. So you decided to go to India for a holiday, or what spurred that trip?
So again, all of this reading, these new people I'd met, that curiosity. I'd started practicing yoga by then, and I really appreciated my freedom. And there was this calling of freedom as well. And I feel like I was just like, we're going. So I just took my daughter, and I told everyone we was going. Again, they all thought I was really crazy for that as well. And they would all tell me horror stories of India. And I came to the realization at that point to only take advice from the people who have done what I'm doing. So I wasn't stupid about it, but people thought I was. So I decided to find some people that I know who've been to India, and I changed my trip actually to go more to the south of India, where it was kind of safer and more suitable for a child. So I sort of met myself what I felt was the halfway mark. But anyway, everyone was just like, you can't take a child to India. But we did. We went. She was 4. And we just spent a month, me and her, one backpack, just traveling and experiencing lots of yoga, spiritual people, and also that sort of nomadic lifestyle. Just having like a little taster of that. So yeah, and during that time, I never drank alcohol when I was in the presence of my daughter. Anyway, I never done that. I was more of a binge drinker. I was like going to go for it, or I wouldn't bother. I never had like a glass of wine at dinner. I didn't understand that. So I don't know. I'm more extreme. It was just confusing for me. And so yeah, never drank when my daughter was around. So I didn't drink for that whole time in India, and I came home and I never drank again. So I've been sober for like 10 years now. nearly 9 years, I think.
What happened in India? Why did that stop?
It wasn't what happened, it's what you experience. As you start to align more and more with your truth and what resonates, sometimes you've got to go to India to find a bit of that, you know, or go to a Tony Robbins event. Or now it's so much easier because you can go any day of the week in London and there'll be one of these events you can go to. You've got to have another experience, and then you start to align with what's real. If we follow the script of life, we never know what our truth is. We're just following the script. You go to school, college, uni, you get the good job, you try hard, bigger house, bigger car. You know, there's that script available to everyone. And if that makes you happy, and it makes a lot of people happy, and I do not look down upon anyone who's that is their path. So if that makes you happy, great. If it doesn't, then you need to have different experiences. And I needed to go to India for my experience. So it opened up my eyes. I felt a deep resonance with a lot of teachings. I love to chant. I was using my voice again. That's another thing, we get quieted down. Or when you say something, you see someone like rolling their eyes, or like, you're weird, like you've gone too far. Maybe that will make you stop and shut down. And so I really practiced using my voice again and being able to confidently say my truth and what I'm experiencing, and without the need to feel what that other person responds to me. It's irrelevant what you think of me. So getting to
so
that
you started
point,
to I'm hearing that you started to relinquish the fear of judgment, really. Slowly you were becoming less fearful of the judgment. I guess that's because you stopped judging yourself too.
Yeah. And when you're in that place of curiosity and just trying to enjoy life, and trying to and when you know you're actually doing it for the best of yourself as well, you're not doing it comparing it to someone else. Oh, I want a better holiday, I'm doing this for an Instagram picture, you know, which people can get caught up in now a lot easier. Then it wasn't so bad. But it's different.
Yeah, because actually you're talking about 2010 here, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, so it wasn't really, that wasn't the vibe there. And so you're genuinely doing stuff out of like I know I wasn't happy before, I'm getting happier, like I feel better in myself, I'm learning things, I'm excited about life. When you've got all of that energy moving through you, you start to just naturally, all of that other stuff can go into the background somewhere. It becomes a lot more sort of blurred, and your own path becomes more illuminated, and it gets more and more. So I don't think I was like, oh, I'm not going to care. It wasn't like that. It just starts to doesn't really matter as much. And I feel like, you know, when you really do know when you're doing something for the good of yourself and for the good of all, people can say what they want. It's not going to affect your energy in any way. It just bounces off you. Yeah. So that was more of that self-discovery there, definitely.
Yeah. So just going back a little bit to when you were in the hospital, you came out, then you were looking at your life and going, what the hell happened to me? I don't know where I belong. And you're feeling lonely and depressed. What kind of thoughts were you having? Like, how long did it take for you to move from who am I to actually, I'm going to go and start investigating and finding out what's going on with me?
About 5 months. Yeah, about 5 months, I think, of that sort of depressed sort of state. And then something, and during that time, that was a lot of that bookshop life. Reading so much, but again, it's still in a way of, even though it's with the mind, so it doesn't matter how much information you have, that can't nurture your heart. And so I feel like it's when you have experiences that touches your heart. So I think after about 5 or 6 months, I sort of started venturing out a little bit out of the bookshop and my house. And yeah, like I said, I went to the spiritualist church. I started going on interviews, trying to get a job just 2 days a week. I thought, I need something. I need some movement, and I need something new.
What called you to the spiritualist church? What was it that made you kind of go, yeah, I appreciate the depression and the, you know, the dark place that you were in, which seemed, I'm guessing it was a real paradox for you, because here you've got this amazing baby who's just got you full of love,
Yeah.
and you just feel so, I don't know, just washed and bathed in just love when you are with your daughter, and she's bonding with you and getting all of that chemistry with the breastfeeding. But then you stop looking at her, and you look up and you look around and you go, where the hell am I?
Yeah.
Who are these people?
Yeah.
And you start to get detached from that reality. What made you take that first step to the spiritualist church, or that very first step?
So that's the duality of that. Like, this is good, that's the duality. So to transcend duality, we have to go to a higher vibration, and you find that, I don't know how you find it, you experience that through, that's what I say, I had to find something, I felt a call, I had to find something else out of that situation. And yeah, I didn't know where to look.
Yeah.
But then I literally saw a sign, spiritualist church, with an arrow. I literally just saw a sign on the road, and I was like, go. So I went, and then outside there's like the little posters of, Thursday evening, 7:30, whatever, come, there's a medium or something like that. So I just started going, yeah. And actually a friend of mine, so when I started work, I met a lady there, and she was really into like angels and crystals and Reiki and things like that. And she's the one who said to me to go to Kundalini. She's like, I know what you need. You need to go to Kundalini. And because that Kundalini was rising, but I didn't know what to do with the energy. And yeah, back then there wasn't hardly any classes. I ended up going to Brighton to go.
So I guess when she says, "Oh, yeah, that's that Kundalini rising," you were like, "What? What is Kundalini?"
Yeah.
What did she say? What did she tell you?
Yeah, she just said, she was just like really quite direct with it. You need to go to Kundalini. I was like, okay, all right. And I listened, and this is the thing. I think when you're in that open space, when someone says something like to me, like if someone said to me, you need to go to Pizza Hut, I'm not going to say yeah and go straight away. Do you know what I mean? It's not the same thing. But when they say something to you and you're in that open state, when you have that awakening, even if you don't know where to place that energy, when someone says, it can be one sentence, like the guy with the alcohol, her with the Kundalini, that sentence seems like that's the only thing you've ever heard in this lifetime. It sounds so loud. It is just like this massive sign, like you need to go to Kundalini. Do you see what I mean? So it's like, it's just one little thing, but it's not. Like when my cousin says to me, you can't go to India, or you shouldn't go to India, I'm not listening to that. But those ones, it's like they come as a sign, they come through the universe, through another person's mouth. And those things, it's like, I'm going to go. Okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to take that path. So you sort of stay open, stay curious, put yourself in different situations that you wouldn't normally be in. And then you're going to get these messages and these signs, and they come in the most peculiar ways. Mm-hmm. And you can't orchestrate that. They just come. And when they do, you just know, like, okay, I'm going to listen.
Wow. Thank you. That's really, really powerful. And you said it to me just now, it just made a lot of sense too. When you hear it, it's just like, it's so loud. It's such a great way of explaining. There was a readiness in you for that message, and you were open to it. So you mentioned things like openness and curiosity. So if somebody's having an awakening or potential awakening, and what would you say that the biggest thing, obviously it's going to be from your experience, but what would you say the biggest attribute or quality, maybe, what's the most important thing that person should know about this experience that they're going through?
Yeah, I feel like, so we can have an experience, like we said, you could almost shut it off or feel disconnected, but the reality of the experience is opening something for you. So I feel like you have to connect with your heart and feel into that space. So even if you know, like when I had my daughter, I knew the person that I needed to be. It took me a long time to get there. I'm still getting there now. I'm still working on myself. I didn't arrive. I'm still on the journey. So have that feeling in your heart, like connect with your heart, have such kindness and compassion to yourself, like, okay, I feel this, I hear the call, I'm gonna do this, I'm answering, I'm on the journey, and I accept the time that it's going to take me to get there. I'm going to call in all the resources, I'm going to trust, I'm going to do a practice, I'm going to look after myself and my body. This kind of thing is like connect with that heart space, because if we think we've had an awakening experience and then we get straight into the mind of like, now I've got to be a guru, yeah, you lost it. You've lost it already. It's gone. You're trying to hold it. So it's like just connect to that heart. Be kind. Feel into it. Let the heart lead your next step, and just focus on that next step. Because what does it mean anyway? I actually took that awakening out of my vocabulary for such a long time. I used to call myself an awakened woman. I dropped it because of all the connotations. I'm just picking that back up again now, because we see this massive resurgence of consciousness in the collective, and so many people, we need to be the beacon of light for those people, because they're realizing it and they're looking for it. It's like, where's my tribe? And there's a lot of us. So I feel like we need to own that now, but don't hold it too tightly.
Victoria, thank you so much for that insight and for sharing your journey. And just listening to you, my intention is to like bring some inspiration to the audience and stuff, but I'm getting a lot of inspiration myself. And I think if I'm just enjoying this, then surely everybody else is going to enjoy it as well. But yeah, thank you for joining, Victoria.
Yeah, thank you. That's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
What is most meaningful for you in 2022? Is it healing and forgiveness? Is it love and belonging? Or maybe it's the courage to be and to act. Soar Book Club has all of this for you and a lot more. We know that stories carry a message. And for 2022, Soar Book Club will be bringing more great stories with messages that we can get our teeth stuck into, to wrap our minds around, and to open our hearts in a fun and engaging community. If you want to read more and need accountability to keep you moving forward in your already busy life, are you looking for inspiration to develop your spiritual awareness? Maybe you want to be part of a positive community during these uncertain times, or connect with like-minded people who love stories and books. Then join Soar Book Club. Hop on board. The train is about to leave the station, and I would love to have you on the journey with me. So click the link below to join. That's Soar Book Club with me, Calvin Niles. I hope to see you there.